Hello there, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
We are back again.
Okay, so we just got done with a series of meditations since the last video, and also connecting and doing some channeling, and putting more and more pieces together, as well as giving you guys the messages from the benevolent beings that we've been in contact with, and we just want to share some things with you. So, who really runs this world? Well, if we look at it biblically, it's Satan.
Yes, it is Satan. And actually, I didn't really understand that or realize that for a very, very long time until actually I started to wake up realizing, hey, there's something not right with this Bible thing. And then, yeah.
And, now that might have confused people even more, because you said there's something not right with the Bible, but yet you agree that Satan runs this world.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you look in the Bible and you read the Bible, if you study it, then you understand, you come to an understanding that, yeah, Satan does rule this world.
And so the question is, who is Satan? And so we've gone into that before. Satan literally just means the adversary, just like Lucifer means the light bringer, light bearer. And an angel literally translates into a messenger. So when we look at things as far as, their actual meanings, instead of how things have been glossed over through the years, and through interpretation, misinterpretation, and editing and revisionist history that's gone on, it's made it very, very difficult to get a clear picture. But Yeshua, Jesus, was very, very clear when he was approached by the religious powers that be back in the day, and they were confronting him, about him teaching who he was. And really, again, that's all been distorted as well, because, I've had people say, well, how could you believe in Yeshua but not believe in the Bible? Well, again, revisionist history, editing, the fact that there were hundreds and hundreds of texts, like we've said, over 200 Gospels in circulation. We have 4. And 4 that have been, as we said, if you look at the oldest copy of the Gospel of John, it's got over 3,000 edits in it, right? People have been changing the true message the whole time. Yet, most definitely we know there was a Yeshua, and he was an amazing teacher of light and love and of compassion and of how to ascend past this world. When we look at the world, we would all agree the world's in a quote-unquote fallen state. It's less than ideal.
Oh my gosh, it's true. It is, kind of difficult to be in this world when you know different things and you know different truths and you have different understandings, but you're still here and you still have to deal with people knowing that they're being lied to, knowing that they're being manipulated or they're manipulating. Makes it difficult.
Yeah, and especially when there's more texts by far that are not in the Bible, the official Bible, which started to be put together with the Council of Nicaea 325 AD. So 300 years, Anno Domini, that's when they started to put it together. There's way more books not in there that were in circulation and being used than are in there. So, take that into account. So when we start looking into the Gnostic texts, it's very, very interesting. And, there are texts like the War Scroll, and the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness. And, they portray this battle going on between good and evil, which, we see the yin and the yang in the world, this duality, that exists in everything. And yet, it's different than that too, because the earth has been a battleground. And so looking into the bigger picture, as we've said, if you look into the Vedas and you look into the Puranas, they talk about 432,000 different humanoid species out there. So they were well aware that there were a lot of different beings out there that were not just, Homo sapiens here on Earth. And Yeshua was well aware of that fact as well.
Oh my gosh, they were. And it was just common knowledge, and it wasn't anything that was hidden. It wasn't anything that was, unusual. It just is to know that source comes in all kinds of different forms.
Yeah. And I've shared with you guys as well. In the Buddhist tradition, Buddha was on a different planet entirely, in a totally different system, and then heard the cries of the people of Earth and decided, I'm going to leave this body, I'm going to incarnate on Earth. These benevolent beings of light, they're not following a religion that's created by humans. They're following just simple principles of love, compassion, and of brotherhood, and of progressing back towards source, prime creator, God with the big G.
Yeah, that's right. So these are all things that are beautiful teachings, but they've been kind of misused.
Yeah, so what the powers of darkness have done is they've gotten humans and humanity, often, unfortunately, to look at other benevolent beings of light that are not of your particular tradition and think of them as being demonic, when all they're doing is spreading teachings of love and compassion and light. So how is that hardly demonic? Well, it's not my dogma. That's just ego talking. And that's not what they would want, not in the least. And, they're very, very sad about that fact.
They are, and it's, but it's one of those things. What can they do? People need to use their free will, and all they can do is stand there and have open arms when people are ready.
Yes, exactly, because each will make their choice, and some will choose to follow the darkness because that's their dominant nature. So if we go ahead and say, okay, well, who rules this world? Well, it's Satan. It's the adversary of God with the big G, of love and of light and compassion and oneness and brotherhood. And, who is doing the will of Satan? Well, it's the powers that be that we see in human form. The system of the world is a satanic system. This system, is made and set up to shackle the soul, the spirit, to create division, and, to distort all the truths.
It is, and it's unfortunate, but we're moving into a time now where we have more and more information, and we can start teaching people real truths.
Yeah, Satan can appear as an angel, a messenger of light. Well, these guys, they talk about light. You might recognize some faces in there. You could see 2 former presidents right there. By the way, where are they? Well, and what are they doing as we look at an owl, right? The symbolism there. An owl can symbolize wisdom. And we look at the bull man, we could, look at it and say, well, I guess that's a minotaur, a little Greek mythology there. Or maybe it's symbolizing the age of Taurus, if we go into astrotheology. Or is it symbolizing something that Cindy was not channeling, but seeing that people were being affected by, and she kept calling him Malachi. And I was like, Malachi, this energy, Malachi, that literally was attacking and possessing people that we have worked on. And we've worked on thousands of people in total. There's been thousands of people that we've done energy work on, spiritual coaching, counseling, as well as getting rid of these energies, these dark energies. So you could call them exorcisms of sort. Even before Cindy and I met, I was doing that, working for a paranormal research group. And we did it as a nonprofit. We didn't charge anybody for it. But many times I cleared houses, cleared people as well of these dark energies. And so, really, here, what are these guys doing? Well, they're serving the dark forces. And, this is the powers that be on this planet. They serve the dark forces. And these are very dark forces when we go down and we look throughout history. We see absolute abominations is really, what we see time and time and time again, serving these dark energies. Cindy had talked about seeing, remote viewing, a group of non-human beings that were part of a council ruled over by one head, and they're not human. This is who the humans report to here, but they are 3/4D beings.
Oh, yeah.
These are, and
They are, and they're on a council, and they're just really quite evil and nasty, but very calculated and extremely intelligent.
and not too far off from our conception of the devil.
Right. No, not too far off at all.
Yeah, they actually look fairly similar to this.
They do.
And so, the one that is in charge of this council, we could basically call Satan.
Yeah, it's sad but true.
And there's so many ways we could look at things too, because, we could also look at the devil on our own shoulder on one side and the angel on the other side, because we always have this internal battle going on because of our DNA. Because our DNA is a mix. We have been mixed with many different races. And think about, let's look at what is now the UK and Great Britain, England, going farther back as we go back into history. And we see that Rome conquered it. And then you have the Roman DNA merging with, the tribes that were there, which, really, when you get down to it, there's a lot of different bloodlines in there. But again, it's merging the DNA with it. Now, the Roman Empire is like a prototype of the draconian, satanic world control. What did they do? They take over areas. They get the people that they take over to pay tribute in more ways than one. But they leave them in charge as long as they follow the system, the protocol, and take the knee, bow, get down, worship that system, that satanic draconian system.
Well, I think the name of the game is extreme manipulation, and it's just a really nasty thing to do, but it's how they operate. They use manipulation to get what they want.
And as we've been trying to get across, there are angels, there are demons, there are basically beings that we would call devils, and, Satan even himself, quote unquote. But there's also extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. There's other forms of humanoid life. There's many other forms of non-humanoid life. There's all of the above. And see, they always want to try to get us into one little narrow mindset. So this Council of Eight, the leader is the one that you could call Satan, so to speak, as he is ultimately this individual that's not human, is actually the one that's really ruling this planet. But again, ruling the planet for who? That's the big question. Then we have all the stories of the giants and the Nephilim, right? And some of these giants, they would munch on people for a snack.
Oh my gosh, they didn't mind at all.
No. So, very, very interesting, these stories, which are universal. They're all over the globe. And we have all different sorts of dark beings out there in our history. There's been this ongoing, ever spoken about battle of the light against the dark.
Yeah, there is. And it's just, it makes me sad that it has to be that way, because it really doesn't need to be that way.
No. And so again, the beings that are of the light, they believe in free will. And they want us to make our choice, because there are those that have chosen to follow the dark path, so to speak. So, who are the Nephilim, right? And really, who is ruling this planet right now? Now, when we look to the stories of the Annunaki, we see these giant beings again. And we see here, we see one of the Anunnaki gods. These are humans in there. They're all caged in. They're caged in. Now, Anunnaki, basically, those that came from the heavens, and, there's depictions of wings flying, right? Flying men, humans, again, tied, hands behind back, neck to neck, tied together, just like what we've seen happen to, people from Africa that were brought over to the U.S. to be slaves, to work on plantations and the like. This is, again, that same system, that same satanic, draconian, Annunaki, and system that we see. Now, their legends say that they created humankind, but that never sat right with me. It never sat right with me. It always felt like that was a lie. And I don't think it's the case at all. Did they modify us genetically? Yeah, I think there's been genetic modification going on. We look at the second chromosome and we see it's fused. Most definitely there's been modification going on. And so these beings, they're often depicted as giant humans. Also, sometimes they're depicted as reptilian as well. And again, we see them of such size that they can hold like lions in one hand. They're very big, powerful beings. Are they benevolent? Not really. Not when you read, the stories. Now, there were some that didn't like, just like there are always some soldiers that don't like to follow certain leaders. There were some soldiers in World War II in Germany that didn't perhaps like the leadership at the top, the one known as Hister by Nostradamus, but yet they still went along with it. And it was the same thing with the Anunnaki for the most part. We see these reptilian representations with, little infants, and we've found all different types of skulls that don't look Homo sapiens sapiens. These figurines, they're all over the world. They're in Central America, Latin America, both Americas, as well as being over in the Middle East as well. And then we have countless abduction cases and encounters, close encounters as well. And, I've seen a being very similar to this. There's one that's been following us and keeping an eye on us all the time for years now. Years. And so these are, again, part of the whole program. So you had gotten, when we were talking about the Nephalim, well, I'll let you share.
Well, I saw some beings coming from the sky, and I saw some beings here. So, I'm not sure exactly which part.
Okay. Well, what I was alluding to was the fact that when we were asking, who are the Nephilim? And we were asking, we're really asking Yeshua, who are the Nephilim? He was showing you these giants coming out of the sky.
Yeah, the Anunnaki coming out of the sky. And, unfortunately, it's almost like they came from the sky and they took over the gods that were already here.
Right. And again, the gods that were already here are not really God, the prime creator. They're benevolent beings. So there again, the word's gotten so distorted through different usages. That's why, personally, I like saying like prime creator, the first creative, or just source, because there is a source. But there's so many different beings that have been depicted as God, but they're not God. They're not the ultimate source. We could view them as a God in that they have higher technology. They understand how the universe works. They can manipulate things, often even manipulate densities, change their own body molecular structure. They can do things that appear magical, but they're not the entirety of the ultimate source of the universe.
Right. And what I was shown is just showing pictures of giants, literally falling from the sky, who came in to sadly take over. But it's not like there was really a war and they won anything. It's more like the beings that were already here guiding mankind saw that things reached a point where they had to step back and let humans make their own decision who they wish to follow. So it's just like if parents are in court and the children are being affected, the parents, sometimes it's better to step back and let the child think for themselves and make their own decision as, a guiding force, a loving force, not a manipulative force.
Well, we do have, these wars of the gods, and it could be, too, that you just didn't get that particular vision, because when we go into, the ancient texts, especially from the Indus Valley area, And not just from there. I mean, we also have the Gnostic texts, which talk about these wars, these real wars going on. But when we look at the battles that went on between the gods in the sky, and people saw this, and they were in flying vehicles, and very, very Star Wars-ish, and also weaponry that looks every bit as powerful as the most powerful NUKEs that we have right now, like the Brahmastra and others, that were wielded by these beings, both benevolent and malevolent. And again, when we see these depictions of some of these beings, they're very, very what you would call demonic, or you could call them reptilian. But at some point, the benevolent beings left. And it's interesting that in the Hindu Vedic tradition, the Kali Yuga starts when Krishna leaves. And so, we'll always still get somebody, if we bring up Krishna and Christ, that will, say Krishna's a demon. And that's more than ignorance. That is just, that's all about just, I have the right dogma, everybody else is wrong. Because, these beings are working on the same side.
That's right. It's like they're all working together, and there are guides, and if there's one being that can't meet a need or do something that you need, you can ask that being to find, another angel, another messenger, another guide to help you, but they don't get butt hurt over each other.
Right. And so, ultimately what you have going on is, control from different realms, mostly like we've talked about the Draco, being over the Greys. There's also some Nordic beings, quote unquote, like Pleiadian type beings that are under their control because they're conquered. They've been conquered and assimilated just like the Roman Empire does. So be very careful when there's certain types of Pleiadian, quote unquote, beings giving messages that seem contradictory. It's because, sure, they are Pleiadian, but they are the ones that have been under control of the reptilians. And so are also the same ones that were working with the NAZIs, giving them the technology to create, the UFO, classic UFO-shaped saucer craft that have the anti-gravity tech that we talked about, Battle of Los Angeles, the saucers over DC, Admiral Byrd, and there's so many declassified documents showing, how this project progressed. And, also all the experiments that they were doing on human genetics as well over there under that regime, Reich. And so, again, you have to be very careful. You have to, discern for yourself, and discern all this for yourself too. Go within, develop your spiritual practice. That's what's really of prime importance here.
Oh my gosh, it's so extremely important. And, one thing is common throughout, and it's these beings, on the hierarchy who are in control. The lines of whoever's in charge get pretty blurred and convoluted, but the one common theme that they have is they manipulate, they use, they lie, and you can feel it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. You could feel it. So, like people have said to us, well, how do you know you're not, getting your info from a fallen angel? Because it would make us sick. Yeah. We would literally be vomiting. We'd be, we wouldn't be able to tolerate the energy anymore. And we can't. We had one person that we were working with that right as we were dialing, a huge black orb came in through the internet line. And again, that's part of how we have the internet. That's all of another way for them. That's a highway for the higher dimension, like the fourth and the fifth. These Alpha Draconians mostly are on 4 and 5D, and they are literally possessing other beings, so there's so much truth really in so many different things, but it's also been very, very convoluted. So, this huge dark orb came through, and more than that one came through, and it just made us immediately nauseous and ill. So if we're around anything that's of that vibration, we can't tolerate it. We just can't tolerate it because we've gotten to be so sensitive to energies. We couldn't tolerate living in a city right now because of the energies again that are there. So it's it's a double-edged sword, because discernment is wonderful, but then again, you literally cannot be around these type of energies, or it will make you violently physically ill.
That's right. And sometimes they leave an imprint too. So we have that problem to deal with. Now we have to get rid of the rest of it. Even though it still left an imprint. And you and I have both been a little off since then.
Yeah, they don't usually get to us. I mean, they don't usually get to me, right. Because I've had so many interactions with them. But they are pulling out the bigger guns, and they are ganging up in many cases, more and more of them, as we are moving up into a higher density, as we've been talking about. Like when you go from 3D and we're heading towards 5D, the first part of 4D you go through is lower astral, and that's where these things live. This is their home, so this is part of that quote from the Bible about woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil comes with great wrath, knowing his time is very short. Well, it's because we're going up. And once we get past that point, then we're starting to move into a place where they're no longer really there. They might have some influence for a while, but it's not going to be like going into their house, into their home, which is basically where we kind of are right now before we start getting out of the darkness.
Right. They're quite ornery that way.
Oh, yeah. And basically, energetically, and unfortunately, sometimes even in physical reality, we're not only worker bees, but a food source, which is another whole aspect to this.
And, I just want to let people know out there, if you guys are having problems, it's pretty common right now that people are running up against, I call it new level, new devil. We are rising in vibration, so you could be being affected as well.
So, there are other benevolent beings from other traditions. But when I asked Cindy, I said, what did they look like? The ones that were here working with humanity, the ones before the Annunaki, came here, what did they look like?
Well, very much like this. They were the blue beings, and they were and to me, when I look at this, I see mom and dad, that's what I see. So it was these beings here.
Yeah, very much so. And, is it a coincidence that when Krishna leaves, we got the Kali Yuga? And from that point on, it's the dominance of the Anunnaki gods, which, that Sumerian system morphs into, the Roman system, and then the British Empire, Holy Roman Empire in between. And we could get into so many other things. There's so many more deep aspects to get into. And we're going to go and analyze things in a lot more depth than perhaps we have in the past. So, to me, it's obvious, because the teachings from the Indus Valley is all about what is consciousness. What is this universe? How does this universe work? Yeah, and it's not about giving away your power. It's about self-empowerment. It's the biggest message is self-realization, which is recognizing that the divine is within all of us.
Yeah, it's really important to recognize that and understand it, and accept it, and know that not everything is as it seems. There's beings out there that are trying to manipulate you, throw you off of your path. Even when it comes to certain traumas you go through in life, that can throw you off of your path and kind of mess with your belief system.
Yeah, most definitely. So they were teaching us how the universe works, how to get along, how to have a higher culture, the whole benevolent aspect of things. And again, everything has been twisted by those in power. Who's in power? Well, it's Satan. It's the adversary of humanity, the one that's enslaving humanity. So why would we believe Satan's word? That's the silliest thing in the world, to believe, the official version of things, when the system itself is the system of the corrupter.
And they do call him the father of lies. And if he is the father of lies, well, look at the one book that we've been given to believe in, and threatened if we go outside of that book. I mean, people really need to question that.
Exactly. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't believe in Yeshua, who became known by the Latinized name Jesus. because we do. But we also believe in the good that Krishna did, that Buddha did, that so many other benevolent beings have done that have walked this earth, because they're all beings of light, and they're all beings that have been trying to get us back on path. But we live in a system dominated by this draconian, satanic system, and so everything is twisted and distorted, and it's given to us in such a way that it takes power away from us. So they always want us to look at things in the sense that, oh, well, we have original sin, and we need to just bow down to God or the gods, beg our forgiveness, otherwise eternal punishment's coming. But it's not the case. What's the original sin? Well, not listening to your controller's directive. And all you got to do is go back and look through the Sumerian works and just see the people tied at the neck. That is their dogma. Again, the Kali Yuga is when the benevolent ones left. If we look at Mother Shipton's, after everything is all done, and then a spaceship comes, and the benevolent beings come back out and teach mankind again. We have to make the choice. It's up to us. Are you going to follow the darkness, or are you going to follow the light? There will be many, many who come to, this is Christ, speaking, many, many will come to me saying, oh, I was teaching your word, I was professing, and he's going to say, I never knew you. Because what you were teaching was dogma of the devil. And it's just that clear. Anything that is divisive like that, anything that is, going to separate one person who is trying to spread a benevolent teaching, benevolent energy from another benevolent person, is spreading the doctrine of demons and of devils, of Satan, of the draconians, the reptilian mind.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of clues right there in that Bible that tell us that we really should be double checking what we're believing in.
And, these guys know it. Now, if Satan's been in control of this planet from the time of Christ, which is what we're told, and we see them still doing their rites on a regular basis and worshiping this dark, dark energy, then we have to question, well, there must have been something true and good about the Gnostic teachings, because they all got burned. And then the people that still were professing a belief in the Gnostic way, as well as others, they all got burned. Along with their teachings, they were put to death. So how could Gnostic teachings be satanic if they were the ones that were persecuted by the powers that run this world, who is Satan?
I know, definitely these questions need to be asked, and I think it's fair to ask them as far as how long we have been held down, how long have we been under their thumb, how long have we been under their control. It's time to ask yourself.
Exactly. The constant wars is part of this. This keeps us divided. And, we have the Essenes way back in the day, of whom Yeshua was one, and that's what we've gotten from him. And interestingly enough, we've ordered more books on the Essenes to do more in-depth studying, and somehow they're not getting delivered. Yeah. It's crazy, as well as another book, too, on the Vedic side of things. But we do have tons of books, and I've read through I read through the entire Nag Hammadi course. That was 20, 30 years ago when I was studying that in depth, and it's improved now in many ways. We've gotten more things translated, but the Essenes, they knew the system was horrible. They knew it was the system of Satan, so they got outside of it.
Yep. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form they did need to use the system somewhat to get out of the system, and that's what we are preparing to do now, is use the system to get out of the system. And when that process starts, just because you get comfortable doesn't mean you stop. You got to get out of it all the way.
Yeah, and then the system will start to collapse. If more and more people get away from the system, abstain from the system will start to collapse in and of itself. And then these individual groups that are out there doing their own thing start to connect. and then you have an alternative to the system. And that's going to be the great separation, and then the whole satanic rule just crumbles.
Yep. It does. It crumbles. But it's going to take each and every one of us to step up and take responsibility for ourselves and make that decision for ourselves. Don't wait for somebody to come along and do it for you.
Yeah, so it's up to you. Do you want to be a son of the light or a son of the darkness? Same thing with daughters, of course.
Yep. Yes.
So guys, thanks for being part of this family. Make sure you are subscribed. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Anybody that needs to get us, reach to us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.